Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Run of House podcast. Now, today I'm joined by Barry O'Donnell. Now, Barry is actually a really good client of mine for my AI automation agency for hospitality. We've been working together for a few months now, implementing various different types of AI into his business. Now, Barry owns a place in Dublin, Ireland called Orlagh House. It's a beautiful private hire venue that hosts weddings or corporate events. And today we go behind the scenes to understand a bit more about Barry himself, how he discovered Orlagh House and bought it and turned it into what it is today, and a few industry insights that I think a lot of you would like to hear. So if that sounds interesting to you, then make sure to watch all the way to the end, as there is plenty of good insights in there. And if you like this episode, make sure to give it a like and subscribe, as it helps us grow as a podcast. And if you're in hospitality yourself and you want to be featured, pop it in the comments and we'll reach out directly. Thank you very much and enjoy. Barry, thank you very much for coming on today's episode. I really appreciate it. If you don't mind just giving the people who are watching a bit of overview about you, what you currently do, a bit of overview about Orlagh House.
Sure. Well, my name is Barry O'Donnell. I'm the CEO and co-owner of Orlagh House in Dublin, in Rathfarnham, in South Dublin. We bought that property getting on for 8-9 years ago. It was an interesting acquisition in that we bought it off a religious order. It was a former monastery. We bought it off the Augustinians. It's a big rambling house on a large estate. And we spent the last number of years refurbishing the house, improving it, and we set up a private event hire business from the house. So what that means is we do a lot of private parties, weddings, corporates, and some eclectic bookings like music festivals, and a lot of film and TV. Suppose I fell into that because my background is real estate, which I've worked in commercial real estate for getting on for 30 years. I'm based in London, so manage Orlagh remotely, but do spend a lot of time back in Dublin, which is my home city.
Yeah, amazing. Well, it sounds like you've done a lot of work to Orlagh House since you got it. So I know you said you took it off some people. How did it come about? Was it always a plan that you'd want to set up a place for like a private hire venue, or was it something that sort of just came your way?
Kind of fell into it because, say, with a background in real estate, Orlagh House is in an area where I grew up, so I knew it very well. And like any real estate deal, at the time, you assess it, and if you feel it's a good deal, which we did, so we jumped in with 2 feet, with a kind of determined plan of what we were going to do, which is what we're implementing now.
Interesting. Okay. And ever since you've bought the place up until now, what part about owning this place do you genuinely love, and what makes it worth all the effort that goes into it?
Well, I suppose with the hospitality business, location is a key. Um, uh, it's one of the key things on a business being successful. So I think strongly we have a fantastic location. It's an overused word, unique, but it is a very unique property. And part of that uniqueness is where it's situated in um, Rathfarnham in South Dublin is basically your gateway into the Dublin and Wicklow Mountains. And Orlagh House, the actual property itself, it sits on the back of the estate. So we're in the lower slopes, the foothills of the Dublin Mountains. And that creates a fantastic vista where you can effectively see the whole of Dublin in front of you,
Oh wow.
all the way to the Irish Sea, Howth Head, the airport control tower, the Phoenix Park. On a good day, sounds like it's made up, but you can see the Mourne Mountains in Northern Ireland. So, and that helps with a business that is about private hire because it's got that wow factor.
Yeah.
Everybody who books there or visits, it's the same thing every time. Going, didn't know this was here, didn't know the view was so fantastic. So location was key. Obviously, it was a sizable property. Like the
Mm.
house is getting on for 20,000 square feet.
Wow.
It wasn't fit for use. So we've done a pretty substantial, capex spend on the property, and you improve as you go. You learn, you spend the money in the right places. We've done it kind of stealthily as the business has grown, and ultimately, I kind of say with all the bookings, they really come back to the same thing, which is people having a party,
Yeah.
whatever that party is for. Whether a wedding can be the biggest party in two people's lives, or the corporates. We tend to do more corporate parties as opposed to a stuffy corporate meeting. We do
Yeah.
them as well, but they don't lend themselves to the house as much. It really is a house that is there to be enjoyed. It's, as I say, it's quite big. We've got fabulous reception rooms. It's a Georgian property, as I mentioned. So, when we've gone about the refurb and buying all the kit and the furniture and everything, we've tried to do it in a quite tasteful, eclectic mix.
Yeah.
That it's kind of deserving of like a country estate, albeit it is a country estate in Dublin. So there's very few of those.
Yeah. It sounds like it's an incredible place for like a wedding setting. If you can see all of those things, you got the mountains on a good day with a good view. It sounds like it's an incredible place for like a gathering or a big party. But you say that you obviously you've been in real estate for years and years, and you're obviously involved in a few other businesses as well. How do you manage your time between all the things that you're involved with?
Well, I could probably manage it better, but I think when you're involved in a few different things, sometimes it's what's most pressing. And when
Okay.
things crop up on a daily basis, you can get distracted where you've got to put your energy and time into things in the here and now and get them dealt with. On kind of commercial real estate is a very strategic kind of industry in terms of, it's a massive industry, but it's built up of a ton of subsectors.
Mm.
And certainly, the difference to maybe the start of my career now is a lot of investors all have thematic approaches. They're in certain things and only in those certain things. Um, where in the past, property owners, I think, were a lot more agnostic, had much wider portfolios. They had a bit of everything. So that's been a kind of big change. And of course, you've both got to follow the money and follow what's happening in the marketplace, because sectors don't remain lively for that long. They're up, they're down, they're in demand, they're not in demand. Some things are on trend. Things can get overheated and overcooked quite easily when everybody wants the same thing. And it's not always about following the crowd, in terms of, it's also maybe taking some counter cyclical views on things.
Mm.
Maybe when they're not as much in demand, because the purchase price in anything is a key driver to how it's going to perform as an investment. So if you get that wrong, you're kind of behind the eight ball.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. And I guess as someone who's the owner rather than someone's like actually on the floor day to day, what actually like lands on your desk? Like, what do you find that you're still having to like deal with on a day to day basis with the venue?
Well, like, with any business, you've got a team, and we've got a fantastic team on the ground who all kind of know the lane they're in and what they're doing, and a lot of it ultimately comes back to customer service. So, it's fine getting these bookings in, but you got to deliver the great day as well, and that comes to making sure the service and the food and the drink is what people want. Um, you can't control the weather, but on days like this, it's kind of pretty predictable in terms of what the weather is like, which is always great for somebody's event. Um, in terms of what I would do on a day-to-day basis, obviously you've got to look after payroll and HR issues and
Yeah.
managing people. You've got to look at the top line in terms of what income is coming in and what income is always going out. We've an enormous amount of predictable cost, so that's got to get covered. You've got to grow the business, so we're always trying to improve. As we invest in the property and improve it, we also kind of have to look at our cost line, that it reflects the effort we've put in there. So a lot of what I would do is also looking at how we get more repeat business. I always laugh and that we don't want repeat business from weddings. Once people are married, we hope they stay married. But certainly from corporates and all the other markets we do, we want people to come back. And thankfully, that is happening in terms of a lot of people have an event up there and then they'll have another event up there. But on the corporate kind of, like I was saying earlier, there's a thematic approach on that in terms of how you go about contacting the corporates where there's a huge market with intermediaries, um, um, and kind of they're called DMCs. So it's kind of really cultivating the relationships with those DMCs so they bring us their clients when they're looking for a slightly unique venue in Dublin
Yeah.
or wider, where there's lots of competitions, lots of places. But we're kind of happy with the offering we have. We're offering something that people who visit do like it and do tend to book.
Yeah, yeah. I guess it's always a really nice feeling when you get people return because you know that the service you delivered was great, and then when people tell other people, word of mouth, it's always a really good feeling. I guess obviously you work partly remote, as you say, you're based in London, but it's in Dublin. How do you stay on top of what's going on there when you're in London most of the time?
Well, again, you're relying on the underground team that's there. We've quite a large team. Like we've a core group of full time employees, and then we have a huge group of casual and part time employees, which I imagine anybody in hospitality do what we do would have as well.
Yeah.
Um, there's lots of peaks and troughs. Yeah, obviously, most premium weddings want to get married in the kind of balmy summer at
Mm.
the weekend, as opposed to a wet Tuesday in January. Um, so you know, it is a lot of reliance on the team, on the operational of that event. But there's an enormous amount of effort goes in before any event. And as I say, making sure that the bookings are coming in and we can see the income line rising every year and controlling our costs. So I think that applies to any business. They're the two fundamental things in terms of what money you're bringing in and what money you're paying out, and making sure at the end of all the hard work there's a profit.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, that's interesting. And I think you've got a view that most people don't. Like you own a place, you run the numbers. Um, what do you reckon in your experience actually like makes or breaks like private hire venues like yours in like today's age?
Um, I think there's a lot of inefficiency still in any kind of hospitality business like that, and you got to do your best to iron out that inefficiency and make things efficient, whether that's payments in or payments out, or rostering and staff,
Mm.
um, controlling the kind of ratios in terms of staff numbers vis-a-vis guests. And no two events are the same, but when you look at or do as many events as we have, there's a lot of data you can take out of that. I've
Yeah,
kind of said to you before, like I'm a bit of a spreadsheet junkie. I've spreadsheets for everything, but even spreadsheets are now becoming pretty archaic and Neanderthal, and you know, so things as an example, and of course, where we met, and you did a fantastic job for us. You know, it was kind of obvious that we're a venue that's effectively available like 364 days a year.
yeah,
While a lot of wedding venues aren't, they're kind of seasonal, and we can't staff the place 24/7. Sometimes we're booked, sometimes we're not booked, but even when we're not booked, it's probably when we're doing the viewings. So I had a feeling that we were missing, not capturing all the inquiries efficiently or quickly enough,
mm.
and hence we kind of went down the AI route, where we both put an avatar on our website, which was interacting with customers, prospective customers more, and also utilized an AI function on the telephone system, so effectively people can ring any time of the day and they will get answered. If somebody's not in the office, well, if they're in the office, it's a human answering, but if they're not, we just find it works a lot better, so there's not any missed or lost calls, and we can go through the initial stage back to efficiency of seeing whether we're suitable for the inquiry, because we're not suitable for a ton of the inquiries we get because
Mm.
we're private hire. And
Yeah,
again, a lot of people think they can just maybe, because we have 15 bedrooms, just book a bedroom for the night, and that's it. Well, obviously we don't do that. We're
mm.
not a hotel.
Yeah,
It's kind of all or nothing. And so just filtering out um, the wrong inquiries creates a lot of efficiency, because a lot of time goes into that.
yeah,
So bookings that are not going to turn into bookings, a lot of time, energy, and money go into that, because you've got to get back to everybody politely. people want to do a viewing. It's very rare people would book a property like ours without actually viewing it,
Mm.
and that takes time. And it's such a big property. Like every viewing can take an hour. When you
Yeah.
add that up over a week, a month, and a year, it's a lot of hours go in by the staff. So, I guess I'd sum that up by we're always striving to make things more efficient, and that's on a daily basis.
Yeah. It's a great attitude to have. I think when you have so much data, like you said, you get like what 100 inquiries a month or whatever it is. You get so many people coming in. It definitely makes sense to actually look at the data. And I think when I've spoken to people in the past, a lot of people they just don't analyze data. And I guess even like you said, when you're like a bit of a spreadsheet junkie, as much as of like an OCD thing it can be, I think it's imperative that you have that, because if you don't analyze data, you can't improve. So it's a really good point you make. Do you think, from what you've seen, that client expectations have shifted much over like the last few years, whether it's corporate bookers or weddings?
Um, yes, like we're only in directly in that space the last 6 or 7 years,
Yeah.
and even in that time, I've seen it change. Where certainly people love a unique experience.
Mm.
Um, I think there's probably a move away from people doing the same old. Um, and certainly that's the feedback I've had from a number of corporate bookers when they're booking us for an event, that they love the fact it was different.
Yeah.
Um, I guess in this ESG age as well, where a lot of people were a lot more footloose years ago about traveling the globe to do events in a corporate, that's maybe not viewed as politically correct now, just with carbon and oil and
Yeah.
travel, and again all the inefficiency of getting so many people to one spot when you know it's kind of been replaced now. Everyone's got post-COVID, they got so comfortable with Zoom calls and whatnot. So um, there maybe isn't that need for the travel. So maybe we're a beneficiary of that in a Dublin sense, um, because there's so many major, multinational companies have their European headquarters in Dublin, and so we've been lucky enough to host a number of those over the years.
Yeah. Yeah. That's okay. And I'd say like, where do you see the biggest challenges for independent venues, either whether it's the UK or Ireland, over the next few years, in any way?
I can answer that very quick. It's cost.
Yeah.
The inflation cost on everything is eye-watering, whether that's alcohol, food. The cost of food is just driven up so
It's
much.
crazy.
You can't change your prices on a daily basis to reflect that. Obviously, a lot of energy goes into the menus and the price and making sure there's an appropriate margin. But the cost of everything has gone up. The cost of oil, the cost of gas, all of our bills.
Mm.
And so I do feel sorry for a lot of business, and maybe a lot of kind of smaller businesses who just won't survive that because they're caught in a place maybe they can't then change their pricing. We've moved our pricing up. We do it fairly. It's ultimately, going back to data, you just got to try and protect your profit line, which isn't huge, but you got to have a profit. You can't be in business just for turnover.
Yeah.
What's the old phrase? Turnover is vanity, profit is sanity. So
Yeah.
I'd remind myself of that every day.
Yeah. Yeah. It honestly it is quite. It's crazy to see. Like even in the new, like hospitality gets hit so much with obviously staffing issues, with like wages and prices for everything going up. It's honestly crazy, like how much it does go up and how much it like puts businesses out of business. I think I read an article, it must have been a couple of months ago, and it was a stupid number of how many pubs in the UK had been shut down just because they quite literally couldn't afford to keep the lights on. And it honestly it is crazy. With with you being the owner, and obviously you have a very good team that work over there on a daily basis. What's one part or any part of running the venue that you feel like the clients never see or they don't quite appreciate?
Oh, that's a good question. Things like meeting regulation are stuff that goes unseen, but we've spent hundreds and hundreds of thousands of euros meeting regulation, whether that's fire regulation. A commercial premises is very different to a residential premises in terms of the regulations are a lot higher. So you go and paint fire paint onto doors.
Mm.
It goes unnoticed, but we have a lot of doors in our premises. Fire suppression systems in kitchens, the contracts you have in place with the suppliers, making sure you're ticking all the boxes. So a lot of those safety aspects, and I'm not saying they're a bad thing, but they are enormously expensive, and so that goes unnoticed by customers.
Yeah, yeah. I think I was talking to, I mean, the first person I had on the podcast, and when there is a busy day, like an important day, like a wedding or a big event, I think everyone, like, rightly so, all the people who are there as customers, they just see the food coming out and they just see their drinks getting poured. But like, you look in the back end of it, and it's like people are running around crazy, trying to make sure that everything is running smoothly, and people clock in a lot of hours to make sure that it all runs well. So I definitely think there's not enough appreciation in the industry for what goes into it. What I'd want to know a bit more about actually is sort of what was the biggest risk that you took to get Orlagh House off the ground, whether it's financially, personally. What would you say that was?
Well, I suppose when you make any big investment, you worry, is it the right thing to do fundamentally? Because it's not about the money in one sense, it's about the amount of effort and time if you're going down a journey of whatever business that is in. And certainly that's something I'm delighted with because, very much love Orla House, what we're doing. We've got a great team. We're in a good marketplace and it's working well.
Mm.
Um, Obviously, when you do buy something, some pretty substantial figures, you're kind of worried, did you get it at a good price?
Yeah.
You've got to get, with every investment, if you don't get the entry price right, it's always a struggle. And without being arrogant about it, we did. We bought it very, very well. It was down to timing, luck, whatever you want to call it. Um, so so that's kind of let me sleep easy at night, knowing that we've bought something and we've certainly enhanced the value. Then there's obviously been a lot of market growth in Dublin as well over the past, like, the guts of a decade.
Yeah.
Um, they're not making any more 100-acre estates on the edge of Dublin, and we have one.
Yeah.
Um, so very happy with that. Um, the other risks are about people. You've got full-time employees that are kind of relying on you.
Yeah.
Um, but as long as we keep bringing in the business, which we do, our team has grown. Um, you know, really happy with the makeup of our team and just the kind of friendly nature of it as well. Everyone gets on. Um, we're all kind of rowing in the same direction, and everybody cares for Orla. It's again, it's probably overdone, but and when people visit, the amount of people who say it to me, and I agree with them, it's just got a special energy. It's got a really, really positive energy. Um, Whatever you want to put that down to, whether it's feng shui or religion or whatnot, given it was a former monastery. So all of those are kind of good things. Um, but again, with any business, you can't take your eye off the ball. It's not about day to day, but it's certainly about quarter to quarter. You
Yeah.
look at the trends, you look at the data, you want to be going in the right direction. Um, I would say with a lot of businesses like ours, not just in Ireland, anywhere, there's peaks and troughs, and that I'm pretty certain most of them would make most of their money over the kind of spring and summer months as opposed to winter months.
Yeah.
Um, sometimes I'm jealous of people who only just open seasonally, and if they only do one thing like weddings, even though weddings do take up a lot of time and are very emotive, because we do so many things, and because we're open all year round, and it's slightly more eclectic on that, it sometimes feels like we're implementing six or seven, you know, correlated but different business plans.
Yeah. Yeah.
Corporates think differently to a wedding couple, and act differently and have different expectations. Maybe are a bit more clinical about events.
Mm.
While a wedding, it is an emotional thing and it's an emotional decision. And a lot of people, not all, but a lot of people would plan a wedding, it can be a couple of years out before the event actually happens. So
Yeah.
that comes with a whole different kind of basket of things to deal with.
Yeah. Yeah. What's the closest you've ever come to like a disaster on an event day, if any?
Um, we've had a couple, like you kind of I suppose, and again, we then go and resolve in the future. But way back when we didn't have three-phase power, um, it took many years just because of the backlog to get in three-phase power. And when you're running a commercial business where there's a lot of people hooking up to your power at an event,
Yeah.
whether that's the chefs and the DJs or the bands and the amps and the fridge freezers, so there's a lot of demand on your power. I won't say who the company was. They had a fantastic event. It was a big US company, had an anniversary in Dublin, and they did the whole 9 yards on it. It was one of the best events we ever did. But towards the end of the evening, the power went,
Oh.
and we quickly had candles on, etc. And nobody noticed. They thought it was part of the presentation. So that was like and it was only like about 20 minutes before the event ended.
Oh.
So we got lots of compliments about thinking about doing the candlelit when we were only doing it because the electricity went off.
Oh
So that
wow.
was when we kind of dodged a bullet. But you know, really, when you plan correctly and you've got the experience and the detail of doing lots of different events and you put the planning in, most kind of issues or emergencies would be avoided. I imagine the one thing we make sure we never run out of for a wedding venue or a corporate venue in Ireland is beer
No, I knew you were
or
gonna say that.
Guinness. So I think that would be an emergency, and we've never done it.
Yeah. Gotta make sure you stock up. Okay. Well, that's the bulk of my questions done. But I just want to end it on you. Obviously, you clearly put a lot of effort in over the years, and it's definitely growing month on month. If you could wave a magic wand and fix or change one thing about all a house runs day to day, what would it be?
Oh, good question. If I had a magic wand, I'd like us to have more bedrooms or certainly more accommodation options. Um, we are on a sizable bit of land. We've got a beautiful walled orchard. Um, I can see the trend in the UK where there's a lot of corporates love it's kind of, I wouldn't call it glamping. It's kind of, but it's kind of corporate camping, which is maybe at a higher level. That's something I'd like to embrace.
Yeah.
So I definitely, with a magic wand, we would have more rooms. We do miss out on a lot of bookings because we can't provide
Hmm.
accommodation for everybody on site. Um, we've currently 15 bedrooms, and we house like 30 people.
Yeah.
So more accommodation would be a good thing for our business.
Would you ever consider turning, if you did get more accommodation, hypothetically, would you ever consider that extra accommodation going to being more like a hotel, or would you still keep it in the private hire venue sort of space?
I think the operational skill set needed for a hotel is far more demanding than a private hire venue.
Okay.
I think a happy medium, which I wouldn't rule out in the future, would be maybe a kind of boutique hotel type
Just like
offering.
smaller gatherings instead of just like one person rocks up for a room.
Yeah, well, I suppose with a hotel, you get what you're given in terms of people are booking it out. But um, one of the biggest attractions from Orla is just its ability to hold fantastic events and parties.
Yeah.
Um, and that lends itself to private hire. Most people who are booking there, they're celebrating something big.
Yeah.
Um, we also put in a lot of effort into at least half a dozen other events a year, which are small music festivals or um, uh, events like we do every Christmas that we started last year. We're doing again this year. We do a Faulty Towers experience, which is just a madcap, event with the Faulty Towers team where people come up and have a 3-course dinner and a show.
Yeah.
And we do those things specifically so people more locally can come and enjoy Orlagh House if they're not getting married or having a 50th birthday or don't necessarily have the budget to book out the whole place. They can still come up and enjoy it at those kind of events. And we're going to continue to do those, and they're always very, very popular.
Amazing. Well, Barry, thank you very much for coming on today's episode. You've shared a lot of insights, which I think people would like to hear about. It's been a pleasure to have you on. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Dylan, and keep up the good work. You've done a fantastic job for us, and it's great speaking to you.